Hey guys, Rudy here. Today I want to talk to you about Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aimé. Now, everybody knows who Reggie Fils-Aimé ever since he burst out onto E3 2004 with his famous line,
"My name is Reggie. I'm about kicking ass. I'm about taking names. And we're about making games."
So when I saw this book, I had to pre-order it, regardless of me not knowing what it was, for better or for worse. I wanted to go ahead and pre-order this book and I wanted to read it. Now, when I got it, I was reading something else and I finally got to it, but I finished this book in 2 days. It's actually a really light read. It's around 190-ish pages, so it's really quick. You could probably finish this in a day if you wanted to. But overall, there were a lot of key points that I got out of this. There were a lot of things that Reggie talked about that honestly could apply towards my life, could probably apply towards your life, but I often questioned who this book was for, because I went into this book as a gamer, as a fan of Nintendo, kind of a fan of Reggie, but I wanted this to be kind of like a look into Nintendo and how they operate on things. And in a sense, I did get a little bit of that, but if you're interested in just reading the Nintendo stuff, you can just skip half of the book. You can go straight to chapter 8. And from there on, you'll get a glimpse of Nintendo. He does talk later on about his post-retirement stint in GameStop, as well as what he's doing afterwards. Throughout the book, there are multiple portions that have something that's called "So What?" And really, it's kind of saying, so what? Why are you telling me about this? What's important about this lesson? And really, that's kind of a way to summarize the moral of the story or moral of the lesson. And personally, I think it's awesome. I think it's a very quick and easy way of going back and reading specific pieces of advice or just lessons that you would go ahead and use later on in life. So it's very easy to go back and just read specific things. But there are specific key takeaways that I did get out of this book that I do want to go ahead and talk about. First and foremost, similarly to the book, there are certain points that I'm just going to go ahead and kind of culminate a lot of pieces of advice that has been repeated throughout the book multiple times as just one solid bullet point. And then there are certain points that are just kind of almost verbatim of what happened within the book. Overall, though, this is up to you whether or not you want to go ahead and use this as a guidepost on whether or not to read the book for yourself, but I recommend it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first key takeaway that I got out of it was that death is literally going to take all of us at any given time without us even knowing. I know it's super somber, but the book literally starts that way. He talks about his thoughts on a flight to Japan to see the wake of Satoru Iwata before his funeral the following day. And it does definitely start on a somber note, but he does mention that Iwata was his mentor, that Iwata was his friend. And this is after obviously establishing a relationship with him. And this is something that kind of changes the perspective on things and is something that is kind of profound in Japanese culture. For those of you that don't know, Japanese culture is very traditional. So having that sort of relationship between a subordinate and a professional, that is a friendship. You know, they met outside of work. Their families mingled together. You know, that's something that isn't common, at least, you know, in Japan. So it was something that he cherished, and seeing his friend pass away just hit him really hard in that sense. So my key takeaway was to just go ahead and ensure that I spend as much time as possible with the people around me that I love, as well as the friends that I make along the way. The second thing that I got out of that was to be open towards new opportunities or alternatives as they come. For those of you that don't know, Reggie, when he was at Cornell University, he wasn't even thinking about working in gaming, let alone any form of brand management. He wanted to work in finance. He wanted to work in banking. So when somebody, which according to the book, he doesn't know who, but somebody put down his name into the schedule of interviews for Procter & Gamble's recruitment, he just kind of said, what am I doing? And then proceeded to go ahead and go for it anyways, and was convinced throughout the recruitment process to actually go work for Procter & Gamble. That one decision changed the trajectory of his career path. He could have been working in banking and finance, but instead worked in Procter & Gamble, became a brand manager, and that kind of led his career into what we saw today with Nintendo of America. And we probably wouldn't have known who he was if it wasn't for that one small decision. So my key takeaway from that is to just be aware of the alternatives, see what's out there, and don't be afraid to go onto the pathless path. The third thing that I got out of that is that you have to learn to own your own mistakes. And personally, I don't have any problems with that. I'm the first one to say that I messed up, because it is an opportunity to learn. We're all here to learn continuously, and experience is the best teacher. That there's no doubt about that. But the way that he portrayed it, the lesson that he portrayed was that when he was working at Pizza Hut, the US economy was in a recession. Well, what do people do during a recession? They hold their money. They want to go ahead and spend as little money as possible. So while he was working at Pizza Hut, his direct competitor in a cheaper bracket was Little Caesars Pizza. In order to go ahead and be competitive against Little Caesars Pizza, he needed to create a product that could be kind of competitive in a cheaper market. So he championed alongside with other executives to get Bigfoot Pizza. For those of you that, were alive in the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. Bigfoot Pizza was actually pretty awesome. But what ended up happening is that the consumers realized that Bigfoot Pizza just isn't as good as the regular pizza from Pizza Hut. So they started associating the cheaper pizza with the quality that was expected from Pizza Hut. At the same time, you had Papa John's that was doing the better ingredients, better pizza slogan. And then Little Caesars was just like, yeah, we lost some of our pie of the market, but it's not a big deal. So when Reggie saw that the brand Pizza Hut was being hurt by Bigfoot Pizza, he quickly turned around, owned his mistake, and said, dude, you need to get rid of this. Guys, we need to get rid of this. I know that it's making money, but we need to get rid of it because it is going to kill our brand in the long run. So it was kind of a weird way of like presenting that lesson, but overall, the key takeaway is to just own your mistakes, realize that when you did something wrong, to own up to it and just try to do what you can to fix it. The fourth takeaway that I got from this book was to trust your gut. And this is a culmination of things. This isn't really for one specific moment in the book, but from various moments. In the latter half of the book, there were several moments when he stuck to his beliefs at Nintendo of America. Nintendo of America, for those of you that do not know, is a subsidiary of Nintendo Company Limited. They are not equals. Nintendo Company Limited in Japan technically has the final say on things. And there were times when Reggie discussed changing the way that consoles and handhelds were launched in the United States. For example, the reason that the US has Wii Sports bundled with the Wii was because of Reggie. He had to fight tooth and nail against Miyamoto in order to get this done in the US. And Miyamoto wasn't happy for that, but eventually everyone turned around and understood that what he was doing and where he was coming from was right. It was tough, but it was right. The same thing could be said about the 3DS and the fact that it launched at $249. Technically, this was seen as a failure in Reggie's eyes because Reggie actually wanted it to launch at $199, despite that technically eating away at the profit margin for the hardware itself. He always thought that it was $199 would actually appear better towards the US market, and he was right, at least in my opinion, because the results of both launches were seen very quickly, and you could see that Reggie understood the US market way better than people in Japan. So my takeaway from this was that if you have the data, if you have everything that's needed to make a decision, the right decision on things, stick to your gut. Just present a plan whenever you're talking to your boss and saying, hey, this is the right way to do things. This is the data that says it, and that's how you move forward on things. The fifth key takeaway that I got from this is kind of more of like a story. It's the real reason why the Wii U failed. I was not somebody that had a Wii U when the generation was actually ongoing. I bought a Wii U in January of 2020, and this is 3 years after I got my Nintendo Switch. I saw it. It was a great deal. I paid $90 for a black Wii U with Nintendo Land. No complaints on my part at all whatsoever. Based on what I read in the book, there was a multitude of reasons that caused the Wii U to fail. From the get-go, there was a confusion as to whether or not the Wii U was a system or whether it was a controller for its predecessor, the Wii. Also, the sales of the console dwindled so fast after its fall 2012 launch simply because of the fact that first-party software wasn't going to be out until 2014 or later. In the Americas, this caused for a huge lack in volume for supporting both consoles at launch. For those of you that do not know, there were two consoles that were released. There was the white Wii U that had a limited amount of storage, and then there was the black Wii U that was available that had larger storage and also came with Nintendo Land. They were priced at $299 and $349 respectively. Reggie quickly acted because of this lack of volume, got rid of the white model entirely and slashed the price of the black model from $349 to $299. I think the main lesson that I got out of this is that when you see something that is happening, when you see something that isn't working in whatever product or whatever it is that you're doing, act. make things happen. Obviously use data to make these decisions, but overall, don't sit there with, your thumbs twiddling. Do things, act, make things happen. I'll be honest with you, I've never been a huge fan of Reggie. I've always respected him from afar, but I've never really been like, oh man, like Reggie's like the best. This book, as well as doing research for this video, definitely gave me a deeper look into who Reggie is and his time at Nintendo. And I gotta admit, I respect the guy way more now than I did before. And now that I know more about what he's done for Nintendo, as well as just gaming overall, like, it's sad that he isn't in the gaming space anymore. Obviously, he's in podcasts. Sometimes he'll like talk in specific presentations or whatever it may be, but it's just sad that he's no longer in gaming. I will say that this book definitely did shed a lot of light into what happened in Nintendo behind closed doors while Reggie was there. It definitely shed a lot of light into the kind of person that Iwata was and how he was much more pensive on things and thought things without actually making any sort of rash decisions. It also showed how his relationship with him kind of blossomed from, just being, a boss and an employee to more of a mentor and finally a friend. So if I were to say who this is for, I would say it could technically be for anyone that is a gamer, technically anyone that is trying to get into the gaming industry, or somebody that just wants good advice for somebody that is working in the corporate space. All in all, I would probably go back, maybe read a couple of notes here and there, but these are my key takeaways on things. If you've read the book, let me know in the comments below. And if you have any questions about this, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have in your minds and your thoughts on things. But obviously, the YouTube stuff, and we will see you on the next one. Till next time, guys. Peace.
Hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more and stay up to date, subscribe, hit the little bell, and join our Discord.
If you want to support the channel, please check out our Patreon or hit the join button below. As always, thanks for your support and thanks for watching.